Welcome to Act 2 You're On. Join us weekly at our studio roundtable as Rhonda, Kate, and Linda invite spectacular guests to weigh in on staying sexy, vibrant, and healthy. Launch your next great act with authenticity and purpose.
Summon your courage, superstar, and step into the limelight. So grab a coffee
or a martini,
and let's set the stage for a grand entrance. It's Act 2.
You're on.
Greetings, friends. I am Linda Ty, and I have the great pleasure of podcasting today with my two dynamic A2YO co-hosts,
Kate Levy.
And I am Rhonda Garvin Conaway, and we are also joined by our very talented producer, Kathy Carswell.
So, friends, for today, this conversation is an invitation to grow deeper. The world seems to turn upside down. I don't know about you, but it feels like we've forgotten about who we are. I love what Julie says on her website. I believe in humans. I'm rooting for all of us to make it. I've come to appreciate that despite our innumerable differences, we all want to be treated with dignity and kindness. We all yearn to know that we matter. We all want to be seen, accepted, and loved simply as we are. If you, too, are rooting for all of us to make it, keep listening, because today we are talking with Julie Lythcott-Haims. Julie Lythcott-Haims believes in humans and is deeply interested in what gets in our way. Her work encompasses writing, speaking, teaching, mentoring, and activism. She's the New York Times best-selling author of How to Raise an Adult, which gave rise to a popular TED Talk, which was phenomenal, by the way. Her second book is the critically acclaimed and award-winning prose poetry memoir, Real American, which illustrates her experience as a Black and biracial person in white spaces. Her third book, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, has been called a groundbreakingly frank guide to adulthood. Julie holds degrees from Stanford, Harvard Law, and California Colleges of the Arts. She currently serves on the boards of Common Sense Media, Black Women's Health Imperative, Narrative Magazine, and on the board of trustees at California College of Arts. She serves on the advisory boards of llenan, Parents Magazine, and Baldwin for the Arts. She lives in San Francisco Bay Area with her partner of over 30 years. They're itinerant young adults and her mother. Julie Lythcott-Haims' most recent book, Your Turn, as I said, is a groundbreaking guide to being a grown-up. In Your Turn, Julie offers compassion, personal experience, and practical strategies for living a more authentic adulthood, as well as inspiration through interviews with dozens of voices from the rich diversity of the human population who have successfully launched their adult lives. Thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to be talking with you today.
Kate, Linda, Rhonda, thank you so much. And to everyone who's listening, thanks for joining us on this journey today.
Well, thank you for being here. And I have to say, I was particularly awestruck when I found out that you were going to be with us because I've heard you speak. I've read your books. And of course, I've tuned into the TED Talks as well. You're just a real guru of mine. And I feel like your work is like one part poetry and one part hard talking truth teller. And it's what is particularly thrilling for me is that I feel like I hear speakers all the time and I read all the time, but rarely do you have an author who is as dynamic as her writing in person. Like you are an amazing public speaker. And you speak as beautifully as you write. And I don't think those things always go together, but people are in for a treat in our podcast for sure.
You just made my day. And I wish my mother was here to hear this. Knowing like, oh, I want my mama to hear this. That's really kind of you. I appreciate it. And I think I came to life first as a person who knew herself through oral rhetoric. I knew that I could speak in a way that felt good to me and seemed to feel compelling. But the writing piece came later in life for me. I had no confidence in my writing when I was young. And I really worked very hard to try to become someone who could put words on the page effectively. So I really appreciate that compliment.
And I just want to say, when I first read on your website, your website's put together really beautifully too. It's visually beautiful, the words that you've chosen to put there. And I just love that you still believe in humans. And I read that, it hit me deep into my soul. Like I really was like, oh, I'm so happy she believes in humans because I want to believe in humans. And I feel like right now can we still believe in humans? Are we going to make it and not kill ourselves off as a species on the planet? So thank you for that hope.
Absolutely. I like to remind folks that our ancestors went through worse.
Yes.
Other than the climate change, the climate catastrophe that is unfolding, it is quite likely we're all descended from people who endured worse. than this. So these are not the worst of times. And we have so much going for us. I think if we could get the climate situation harnessed, and if we could unlearn the hatred we have toward people who are different than us, we could really look out into the next millennia with confidence that we're going to be okay.
Absolutely. Your work on so many levels is helping and guiding us through that. You know, the last time we spoke on a podcast, we were talking about raising adults, and it's just a great name for that book. And I realized that I was doing some helicopter parenting, and you really helped me to understand, wow, that's, what damage that is. And not that it's intentional, of course, but that I didn't have that. My parents, I was gone all day long playing in the woods and playing in the fields, and nobody knew where I was and so different. So how do you do that? How do you give your kids roots? I know this is a big question. It's very broad, but, and then allow them to have their wings.
Yeah. I agree. And as you know, I wrote that book on the harm of helicopter parenting, only to discover increasingly as I wrote it, published it, and then toured it, which has now been out for 7 years. I've increasingly learned that I too have been a helicopter parent all along. I thought I was like, now y'all, you need to not do this. And then I was like, oh, hey, shoot, I'm doing it. And so I really get it as a sort of why we seek to micromanage. It's really micromanagement. Just have to know every little thing, have to make sure, have to remind, have to handle it for you, have to double check. And I've come to really appreciate that it undermines a kid's sense of confidence, because it's sort of like saying, I don't believe in you, so I have to do it. I'm worried you can't, so I better handle it. I don't trust you. It's terrible. We don't mean to, but that's the message they get. And they don't develop skills because we're there handling every little thing, smoothing out the path. So they end up grown and less capable. And everyone's like, why don't they launch into adulthood? It's like, well, they didn't get the chance to practice any of the stuff that adults need to know. So I bring this tremendous compassion for the young people, which is all about what my new book, Your Turn, is about. I'm helping them begin to thrive in their adult lives. But where's the balance? I think you're asking, sort of roots and wings. Roots and wings are exactly what we want to instill. Roots in the sense of, who you are, you've got great values, you know how to work hard, you're unconditionally loved. I mean, those are the roots. And the wings are, you have the ability to go wherever you want to go and try what you want to try with confidence, that as long as you have a mentality of, I'm here to learn and grow, I'm not going to be perfect, I'm just going to try it and I'm going to learn from it. Even if I stumble, I'm going to get back up, learn from it, try again, right? That's the wings, right? That's the ability to kind of go where the wind takes you. I got these strong wings and I'm going to, I might get a little, but I'm still, I can keep those wings unfurled and fly. Look, it's our egos as parents.
It's true.
As mom, right? We need I need to make sure. So therapy is the answer. A lot of good techniques for us as parents.
Yes.
Figure out, why do I need to micromanage my child like they're a dog on a leash? They're not a dog. They're a human being.
Yeah. And how did the world change? Because as we were saying, we weren't raised this way. I love this book. I feel like it's a great guide that everybody should read. It's 7 years and it seems so predictive of what has been happening. I wonder if you can reflect with us about what 2 years of COVID added on top of the really challenging issues that you were already mentioning, and then throw in the addition of 2 years. And so what are we now? If we're not helicopters, are we Zambonis? What are we? It's
right?
It's different.
It is. I think obviously COVID's been hard for people of every generation, very young kids, middle, K-12, college age kids, young adults, the rest of us adults. It's been hard for every group for different reasons. We know that young adults, teens and young adults, were already dealing with high levels of anxiety and depression all over the United States, particularly in communities where there's all of this pressure to be perfect. And then the pandemic hit and just brought a whole new level of really poor mental health. Where overparenting then comes in is when a kid, let's say, like I'm right now, I'm in an Airbnb talking to you because I'm visiting my daughter who's a 20-year-old on a college campus. And she came home to us during the pandemic from her freshman year in college. And our elder one was 20. So the little one was 18. And so her entire world, was shrunk back down to her childhood bedroom. Some of us parents in that circumstance reverted to the sort of ways of being as if our children were still 12 and 13 and 14, even though they're 18, 19, 20. So we treated them like children. Some of us, and some of the kids wanted that, but some of these young people moved back home and were like, I'm accustomed to a lot more independence and freedom. I make my own decisions. I handle this just fine without y'all. Like, I don't need you to cut my meat, right? Don't revert, right? And those young people were more likely to then say, look, can I help out? Can I do the grocery shopping? Can I handle this task? Like, living at home as kind of co-equals, as equal. We're all adults here. So the pandemic both provided an opportunity to double down on helicopter parenting and micromanagement, or to like, hey, no, we life is chaotic and everybody has to do different things now. And we need our young adult children to pitch in and behave as a co-equal. So it could go either way.
Mm. Yep.
I love this conversation and the reflection upon where we've been in the past. And if we embrace the idea of learn and grow as we move forward, it's that cyclical piece: reflect, acknowledge, move forward, try again, and then reflect and try again. So you mentioned earlier that there's a real source of inspiration from our ancestors, and that moved me. Can you talk a little bit more about that idea of what we can learn from our ancestors, even though the times in which we're living look vastly different?
No one's ever asked me this before, Rhonda, so thank you for the opportunity. Life is pretty easy in the 21st century. I think about my mother and her mother and my great-grandmother in Yorkshire, England, who were in a coal mining town. And I think about the stories my mother tells of hand washing the laundry outside. And I'm mad because my dishwasher broke and I have to hand wash my dishes. One generation ago, my mother was scrubbing laundry against a washboard, doing dishes by hand. And her house was about this big, and my house, by comparison. And my father's people were originally from Africa and were enslaved here in America. And my husband's people are Eastern European Jews. And I just think of the tenacity that those folks must have had to summon to just get through a day, a week. Life was harder. Healthcare was worse. Life expectancy was shorter. Children died frequently. It's just, in some ways, I don't know. I think we're disconnected from how to make things, how to create things, how to persevere against the odds. Struggle makes us stronger in many ways. And which is why I think there's a hidden silver lining from this pandemic, which is when the rug has been pulled out from under you, when you can't rely on your normal routines, it forces you back into thinking instead of like, Alexa, how do I solve this problem? Or Siri, come solve the pandemic. It's like, no, I've got to actually be a part of the creation of a new way of doing things, or a new way of working, or a new way of the family is going to function, or what have you. It's really kind of requiring us to kind of activate some of these capacities from the people we're descended from, of like, no. Some of our folks, headed out across a barren piece of land to try to find, or across the sea or whatever, to go find a better life. Like, I live in California, and whenever I drive over the Sierra Nevada mountains, I'm just struck by the fact that, folks went by horse and buggy over those mountains. And there's a lot that's wrong with colonialism and the taking over the West by the Europeans who came and took it from the Native Americans. I'm not trying to make a political statement here, but just to say that we come from people, wherever they're from, who persevered against so much more. So I think that's what I try to summons. Like, we are the highest point of evolution of all of our families. We've all the latest to be born. We benefit from everything our ancestors went through and gave us. And I think we should remember the gifts of that.
Yeah. Reconnecting to history and our own personal history. I think that it does. Maybe we need to stop saying, oh, these are such hard times, and think, oh, it's a lot harder. As you're saying, even 1, 2, 3 generations back.
And let me say one other thing, Kate, one other thing, which is we can say these are hard times, and then we should pause and say, but we do hard things.
Yes. Ooh, amen.
This is hard, and we do hard things.
We got this. Yeah.
And we're being called to summon that tenacity and creativity to rise to the challenge that we're being brought to in our generation.
Because this is our time and our challenge.
Right on, Rhonda, Linda. Yes.
So I have Real American. For those of you who are not watching it, I'm holding it up. It's got the most adorable picture of you when you were a baby. But I wonder if you can talk about this a little bit and talk about the story that unfolds within this great book.
Yeah. So I'm 54 as I sit here with you. I'm a Black biracial cisgendered woman. My father was an African-American man who died more than 25 years ago. My mother is very much alive, a white British woman. And when they fell for each other in 1962, it was against the law for them to be in relationship, for them to be married and choose to have a child. And so I am pretty sure I came into the world knowing I was transgressive. You know, I got looks from strangers that showed me something was wrong with me. I couldn't call it racism then, but I was taught you're outside the line. They didn't have words for mixed people then that were polite. So I think my rooting for all of us, as you so beautifully relayed, Linda, at the top of the show, Julie roots for humans. Like, I think that comes from me feeling like an outsider, like I'm outside the line, the boxes humanity draws, like I'm over here. I'm outside. I don't fit. They tell me I don't belong in these boxes. And so I think it gives me compassion for the other people who've been marginalized or treated with not with dignity and kindness. That's why that's on my website. You know, like I think I have had some of those unkind experiences and I really don't want anyone subjected to them. So that book is this very visceral, vignette driven, small story driven narrative from my earliest childhood to the present of me dealing with being in this body with this color, with this hair in this America over these decades and confronting or experiencing the microaggressions, we would call them, or sometimes outright hateful racism and what it did to me. It began to distort my sense of self. I really, as a teen became somebody who just hated who I was and was embarrassed by my Black father, which just pains me to say because he was such a magnificent human being and I adored him. And yet I was ashamed of Blackness and to be Black because of what I was being taught. It's just my own sense of self was distorted. It was like this poison was dripping onto me and it was making me contort and try to behave differently so that people wouldn't see me as the problematic Black person. I mean, look how light I am, right? I haven't lived a life that is in any way resembling that which darker people endure. But even with this light skin, I was told repeatedly how problematic I was and unacceptable. And anyway, so that's what that book is about. Ultimately, I dip into this self-loathing, but then I come out of it to this place, innocent child, self-loathing, middle years, and then this place of self-love in my 40s, just in time to try to help my two children figure out their identity and their place in this America as mixed race kids in the era of Black Lives Mattering. And so that's what that book is about. Deeply personal, very vulnerable. And the best thing about it, Kate, is that people will write me and they'll say, no one has ever told this story. I've gone through it too. Like, not no one has ever told it, but I've never read a story so like my own. And then I'm delighted to reply, I wrote this for all of us. I'm trying to help you feel less alone. I'm trying to feel less alone when we can dare to share some of the shit we go through. We find ourselves in community with people who get it. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just keep wanting to say amen.
I know.
Your style of speech and just the thoughts that you bring forward are just so, it's beautiful and it's hard. Your writing is challenging, but it's also just so genuine. And I do think that your humanity and that sense of love and a desire, I don't know, to heal these divides. If anybody's ever felt marginalized, if anybody's ever felt left out, I feel like your writing and your philosophy is very inclusive, and it wouldn't have to be, considering things that you have experienced. It is, you've got an incredible voice for our time. It's why I consider you one of my gurus. So that's why I'm kind of like gushing over myself.
I'm so honored. I don't even know what to do with that because it's so big. But I'm just going to take it and just with gratitude say thank you I think you really see what I'm about. And you're seeing layers beneath what is evident on the surface of my writing or my talking or whatever. You're like really getting into it. And I'm just grateful that my stuff, my journey and my work is resonating with you and yours so well.
Well, it's been super important, and I don't want to make the podcast about me, but I have to say, in terms of your writing, 3 of my 4 children are people of color, and it's been beautifully relevant on so many levels. And, not only the practical guide to like, how do I raise kids in this day and age, but also to give me that kind of the intimacy of that book. Super grateful.
Well, it's, I thank you for sharing that. And I don't know how often you do on the podcast, whatever you're willing to say more about either their ethnicity or what their parentage is. I'd love to know. I have a white mother, and she's done her darndest to try to raise me to be a woman who would love myself in my ancestry and with the skin and features I've got. And as you know, from reading that book, I take out on her the anger that I finally was able to feel that my parents chose to raise me in all white places. My Black father is the one I really should be yelling at, because he's the one who should know better, who should have known better. But he died when I was 27, and I didn't have the wherewithal to know myself, to have the agency to have this conversation. So unfortunately, I took it out on my white mother, who was in her 70s at the time. And, she never said anything other than, all I wanted was for you to love yourself in your, as a Black and biracial person. That's all I've ever wanted. And if this anger is a part of your coming to terms with that, then I'm here for it. She was magnificent.
Wow.
And I give her a lot of credit for being a kid born in England in 1939, married a Black man from America, in the 60s. That woman was just 100 years ahead of her time.
There were no books like these that she could call upon. No. Yeah.
Julie, having written that book, and you were so gracious in talking about the vulnerability that was required, how did life change for you? You mentioned that you found more community, you connected with others who felt a similar experience and it resonated for them. But let's talk about you. What changed in your world having written that book?
The first thing is that most terrible things, which I sort of dug them up. It was like they were hiding and had burrowed down into my spirit. And I kind of went in and excavated them and brought them back up to my own consciousness. And then I put them onto the pages of a book. They were released from me. They're no longer memories that are painful things lurking in my body, because I have, when we give voice to difficult memories in general, I'm being very general here, it tends to be a process through which we release them. So it's a catharsis. And I didn't know that would happen. I mean, they were so viscerally there. I could remember the voice, the colors, the clothing, whatever. Once I got them out on the page, they live on the page now, and they're no longer in memory. So now when I try to recall the memory, it's actually more accurate on the page, because my own memory has been like, yeah, we don't need that anymore. It's not in here, which is just wow. And then the community, feeling that, I was this brown-skinned Black biracial kid who didn't have any Black friends, any friends of color. We lived in all white spaces. And now my life is richly diverse. Yes, I still have plenty of white friends. My husband is white. My mother is white. But my life is just richly diverse with people. And I love that. And that is a joyful thing. And I think if I could go back and tell my little lonely 9-year-old self or 13-year-old self, or 15-year-old self, like, will I ever be asked to the prom kind of thing? Don't worry. When you get older, you're going to be able to choose where you live, and you're going to know yourself real well. And you're actually going to love your natural hair. You're going to love it. You're going to be on a podcast and go like this and be like, I love this stuff instead of what's wrong with me. Like, I think my younger self would just cry, just weep. If I could go back in time and reassure her, like, don't you worry, sweetheart, it's going to work itself out. Ooh. Being in community now with folks who don't regard me as an oddity, but regard me as a human of worth and value, and being able to convey the same to others. That, being the author of this book, has brought me into those spaces, and that brings me a lot of joy.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to shift a little bit now into this segment that we call the Golden Nugget, and we get such good feedback. And you've already offered us so much wisdom, but I wonder if there is either something that's really meaningful to you, or that you've experienced in your life or in your work, that you could offer now to our listeners who are at a point of transformation.
Thanks for the opportunity, first of all. My new book is an enormous book. It's 459 pages long because it's about how to live your best adult life. It's called Your Turn, and it's not short because life is long. And it's not just like tips, it's like deep stuff. But I think one of the main golden nuggets, I hope, of that book is this. This is your one wild and precious life. Here I'm quoting the late poet Mary Oliver. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? She said. So I'm telling readers, this is your, no one else's, one, as far as we know, wild, meaning untamed, unscripted, unmapped, and precious, rare, unique, of value life, right? Listen to those words. It's yours. Okay. You decide, and it's never too late. And you can always pivot toward the next thing. Okay. There's no right track. There's only the track right now that's right for you. Okay. It's not about what other people think. All the noise in your head about, well, I should, or I ought to, or my parents always wanted, or my extended family, or my whole ethnic community. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Right. I'm here rooting for you, not for you to conform with what other people expect or value, but for you to get in touch with that inner voice that wants to be heard by you, that inner voice that will speak back to you. If you say, what would I do next? If it was just up to me, if they weren't going to judge me, or if they would wildly applaud me, no matter what I did next, what would I do? Your own self, your spirit will answer you if it trusts that you will listen to it and not squelch it down, right? Be in conversation with yourself about what this life wants to be. And then summon the guts to take those next steps.
That's about one of the greatest golden nuggets.
It really is.
Oh, wow. So good.
That's everything. I really wish we could spend the whole day and weekend with you.
Yes.
However, we want to honor your time, and we are coming to the close. But before we sign off, could you tell us what's coming next for you, Julie?
Well, Rhonda, fingers crossed. I am working on developing a mother-daughter memoir. So the aforementioned amazing mother of mine and I, and my husband, my partner, Dan, and I, we've all co-owned a home for 20 years to get into the right school district for our kids. And it's been hell. We've had our moments. We did it for financial and logistical kid school district and child rearing reasons. But the mother-daughter tension was just like, we have been on a journey, my mother and I, and we want to write about it to help others. I believe you write memoir to serve others. And we think we have a tale to tell that can help others see. Don't you dare go into this. We're going to buy a house together and all live together under one roof without having regular conversation where everybody has to bring their to the table, right? And be able to speak about, you know what, let's talk about this. This isn't quite working for me. Instead of silence, 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 rage, silence, 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 rage. And so that was that Kathy?
That's Kathy.
Right on, Kathy. So that's the book I'm trying to, that's in book proposal mode right now. I have to write a proposal. Hope my agent will like it. She'll give me feedback, and then hopefully I'll get it out there and get a book deal for it. And that'll be the next one. Secretly, I'm also hoping they're going to ask me to do a 10th anniversary of How to Raise an Adult, because a lot has changed. And I think I could really add some good material.
Absolutely.
To that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
We know that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, would you buy that mother-daughter book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really just older generation, younger generation.
Yeah.
Yes.
For any of us who's trying to like heal a rift with an elderly parent, like we're all in the sandwich generation, right? There's that dynamic, but it's also, we might be the older one and trying to work on the relationship if we're in the older set. Anyway, I think it's just about how humans communicate and show up for each other and work on our own stuff so that we can remove it from the, we don't want to bring our own mess to the situation. We want to try to look, I'm a big believer in therapy. I'm a big believer in feelings and talking it through. My mother's from the north of England where they don't believe in feelings. So that's been, the heart of it. Like, she doesn't express how she feels. She just tamps it down and then acts out accordingly. And so that's been her journey. Like, be able to share her feelings. And my journey is trusting that my mother can handle my feelings, because all my life it was clear that she couldn't. So
yeah.
I feel you. My parents moved in with us 5 years ago. So I really hear you.
Yeah. A lot of upsides, but there's some downsides, right?
It has challenged me in ways I didn't anticipate.
Yeah, Rhonda, I'm so with you.
Mm-hmm. And the rewards are great, but it's all part of it. It's relationship, it's communication, it's challenge, it's creativity, lots of empathy, lots of understanding.
And I think I felt some guilt because my mother was offering free childcare.
Yeah.
You know, how are my husband and I going to be young professionals in Silicon Valley, have kids, afford the cost of living there, right? We had this free childcare. And I think that made me, as much as I wanted it, I resented or felt guilty that she was providing it. Because it was almost like, how am I ever going to repay this?
Yeah.
How are we ever going to be equals if she is basically providing the missing variable to make our lives work? Are we not adults? Are we too reliant on, now that she's 83 and has a few health issues and is a little bit more frail, I'm able to see oh, no, here's where we're paying. Here's the payback, right?
Yeah.
Provided that, we provide that. You can see the dance. You can see, how there is this complete interconnectedness, interrelationship. But I've had to come to terms with the fact that sometimes I was grumpy and mean because I felt inadequate, because she was doing so much for us.
We can't wait to read that memoir.
Yes. Yeah. It can't come soon enough, really. So we're anxiously awaiting for that. And
thank you. Bring me back. Can I come back on the show when that comes out?
Yes. That would
please.
be amazing. Yes.
Good. Okay,
yes.
Awesome.
So
here I am hoping it comes out. It's not even a book yet. So let me just
No, hold on.
We believe.
We're sending you
coming
good
out.
news.
We know it is.
We believe.
Absolutely.
There is no doubt.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you so much, Julie, for joining us today. Thank you for your heart, your wisdom, your just human, raw, beautiful words of wisdom. You're just incredible to talk with. You fill our souls. So thank you. It's just beautiful.
Well, Linda, Kate, and Rhonda, thank you, and Kathy too, your producer. The last thing I want to say is your listeners have been with us for a number of minutes. And I want to invite every listener still with us to ask yourself what came up for you as we talked. Those are clues from your own spirit or soul or mind or gut that mattered to you. Be curious. Whatever came up for you in response to this conversation is valid. Be curious about it. Take it forward. Understand it more.
Thank you for that. What an invitation. And I'm guessing also our listeners aren't going to want to stop hearing from Julie. So we'd like you to be aware that you can get more Julie at her website, julielythcott-haims.com. She is on all the socials, so you can sign up to be part of her blog community, Julie's Pod, which is an awesome gift in your inbox. I love that. She's on Facebook and Instagram. So check her out. She's not going anywhere. And of course, Your Turn, How to Be an Adult is the most recent book, right?
That's right. Just out in paperback. So you can get it in all formats, but now more affordable in paperback. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, special thanks also to our talented producer who was cackling behind the scenes there. That was Kathy Carswell, who loved every minute. I wish we got to put a camera on her at some point because she's just embodying her yes, when she agrees with something. So she's loved this as well. And she makes this magic happen for us.
So it is left for me to say, go forth, be brave, live well and do good, because it's Act 2. You're on.
Act 2 You're On was brought to you by Act 2 Share Our Stage.
You can find us at a2yo.com and also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Please listen and subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. You can support us using Patreon. Thanks for listening.